Prime Minister has declared that the results of 2024's general elections have already been decided in 2022. Is he right? Is it a done deal? That's what we're going to focus on, Srinivasan Jain and I, over the next couple of hours, on a day when the Prime Minister hit the road within hours of the BJP's momentous win in Uttar Pradesh and other states. He held a roadshow in Gujarat. We just play out those pictures for you. The Prime Minister on a 2-day visit to his home state, Vasu, and it's important because Gujarat is the next state where there are going to be assembly elections later this year. Also today, we saw Bhagwant Mann deciding that as Chief Minister, he will take oath next week on the 16th of March. Those were the big developments, but the big focus therefore is that has the Prime Minister called it too early or is he right?
2019 में जब लोकसभा में हम दोबारा जीत करके आए तो ज्ञानियों ने कहा था कि भाई 2019 के जीत में क्या है, ये तो 2017 में ही तय हो गई थी, क्योंकि 2017 में यूपी का रिजल्ट आया था। मैं मानता हूं इस बार भी ये ज्ञानी जरूर कहने की हिम्मत करेंगे कि 2022 के नतीजों ने 2024 के नतीजे तय कर दिए हैं।
All right, so the Prime Minister's big gambit there. Well, let's kick off our debate. We have with us Satyapal Jain. He's senior leader of the BJP, is joining us, and also we have with us Priyanka Chaturvedi. She's from the Shiv Sena, Rajya Sabha member of Parliament, senior leader of the party. Thank you both so much for being with us. Satyapal Jain, the Prime Minister says 2024 is already a done deal. Has he called it a little too early? Is this, as now some opposition and other leaders are saying, this is just mind games?
See, the Prime Minister quoted only some of the so-called intellectuals or opposition leaders who had in 2019 said the same thing, that the victory of 2019 had been written in 2017 when we won the UP.
Let's just go to Priyanka and get her view on this. That Priyanka Chaturvedi, of course in politics people make these sort of statements. Mind games is part of the power games in politics. But is there a concern now that given the comprehensive nature of this BJP's victory, the state of the opposition is not very good, that it is looking like 2024 is tilting towards the BJP?
So, as far as opposition is concerned, if they are, if none of the political parties rise up to the occasion of having to challenge the authority of the Bharatiya Janata Party and making a democracy just a one-party democracy, then I think it is a source of concern. And if parties don't start actioning and start working on the ground and understanding what is really clicking with the people, and for them to support Bharatiya Janata Party so overwhelmingly is something that we need to understand. However, Uttar Pradesh, whether we talk about Uttar Pradesh, thankfully we do have an opposition which has emerged, which is much stronger than 2017 elections, and hopefully they will hold them accountable, hold the government accountable. But you know, states such as Goa, states such as Manipur, for that matter Uttarakhand, which were facing heavy anti-incumbency, and for the main political party, the party which was in contention, to not be able to convert it should be an alarming, I would say, status for anybody. And as far as 2024 is concerned, it is a fact that this is not just a mind game, this is not just a psychological advantage, this is a definite advantage for the Bharatiya Janata Party, for them to keep winning state after states and changing the discourse of history, whether it is Uttarakhand, whether it is Goa, by giving them that kind of mandate to govern. As far as you know, someone was saying that these are false narratives, that if state elections are won, 2024 will also be won. I think these are not false narratives, these are facts that are speaking on ground, and for every political party in the opposition to unite behind this entire idea of giving an alternate vision of India. And if we do not do that, then
you're quite honest.
I'm pretty certain it's going to be a challenge.
You're being quite honest and upfront about where things stand for the opposition. We'd like to also welcome Kakoli Ghosh Dastardar, who is a Lok Sabha MP of the Trinamool Congress. Yogendra Yadav, the president of Swaraj India, also joining us. Kakoli Ghosh Dastardar, just to take off from what Mamata Banerjee said earlier today, where she essentially blamed the EVMs for Akhilesh Yadav's loss in Uttar Pradesh. is this something that's actually going to cost the opposition? If you're going to look at losses through the cynical prism of EVMs not working, don't you all first have to accept the fact that, you know, people have overwhelmingly voted for the BJP? You work backwards then from there.
See, at the onset, we would like to congratulate all the candidates who have won in the election, whichever party they were contesting from. That is the first thing. We congratulate the people for coming out to cast their right to vote. But at the same time, we have to take into account this very nauseating thought that the EVMs were tampered with, and we have videos with us in which the Prabhari of the Mandal is in a very casual manner saying that they have changed 200 EVMs, and this is from some part of Uttar Pradesh. It is in the public domain.
Kakuli ji, one second. You know, one has to be a little, but no, I'm saying one has to be a bit careful about making broad-based allegations for an entire state based on individual videos.
To you. So if a video comes to public domain, I have not discovered it. It is in public domain.
I know,
so
but
if
you
it's
can't.
Public domain, then it remains with the Election Commission to look into the allegation.
Okay, but the wider question.
Who is disturbing me? I wasn't disturbing you. Now the thing is, you know, the other thing that I would like to point out is anti-incumbency factor has definitely come up because the Samajwadi Party has done so well. They have come up from their number of 47 to they have crossed the 100 mark. Now Akhilesh ji possibly didn't understand all the malpractices, all the electoral malpractices that he would have to face.
Okay, Kakuli ji, this is Srinivasan Jain. I am the anchor. I'm trying to ask a question. I'm saying that beyond this allegation of malpractices, which I said is something that, you know, one has to be a little careful. The wider question is 2024 Lok Sabha election a done deal as the Prime Minister suggests, or do you think it's still wide open?
Not really. This is like a psy war. This is like a psychological war in which, you know, they try to affect the psyche of the voters, people, to say it's not done. 2 years down the line, what changes will happen?
Okay.
What kind of management with the dead bodies of the unfortunate COVID victims will be done? What pictures will come up? All that has to be taken into account. Again,
Just to get Yogendra Yadav in on this.
On the same, yeah.
Yeah, Yogendra Yadav, you know, one of the criticisms that even, you know, Akhilesh Yadav is now facing in the post-mortem of this election is that, you know, he worked really hard on the ground, but it was only in the last, let's say, 4 or 5 months that he was very visible on the ground. Now, is that the opposition's biggest challenge, that even when it has issues that it can create a narrative on, it's just not consistent across the board? You know, parties will come up, you know, 2-3 months before an election, they'll you know, put their best foot forward, and that's clearly not, you know, in many cases going to be enough. So is that what the opposition needs to do, be visible 24/7 the way the BJP is?
Yes, of course, Nidhi, but let me just come back to your question, but begin by answering the Prime Minister's statement.
Yes.
Which I think is a very fair statement. You know, what else do you expect a Prime Minister who's addressing a political rally? Do you expect him to do political science or psephology? I mean, he's making a political, he's creating a hawa. I mean, this is called self-fulfilling prophecy. So he's trying to make a prophecy which he hopes will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Of course it's not true. Of course he doesn't even think that it would be true. But more importantly, on the substance of it, I think from yesterday, it all depends on what the opposition learns from yesterday. I heard Kakoli ji carefully. Yes, it is true that there have been malpractices. Yes, it is true that Election Commission has been completely partisan. At the same time, the reason why BJP won in Uttar Pradesh is that more people voted for BJP than for any other opposition. Let's accept this thing straight away. I mean, no excuses, no pretext, no alibi. Sure. It's for our own sake, not for the sake of Election Commission or whatever. Because if we have to confront this challenge of the BJP dominance, then it's only good for our own sake that we accept this truth.
But Yogendra, but Yogendra, that's of course the electoral arena of it. But you made this point yesterday, if you remember, about the fact that this is now no longer just simply a question of winning elections, but this has to do with, and you said rather provocatively, the dismantling of the republic. And I think that's something which, you know, if you want to explain that more, because Satyapal Jain is here, he was concerned about, he was trying to understand how do you correlate an electoral outcome, you know, whether it's 2024 now, with, as you said, the dismantling of the republic.
Yeah, Satyapal ji is a very good advocate, so I would be happy, and he's from my old city, Chandigarh, so would be happy to have his reactions to what I say. But allow me to just quickly finish what I was saying. I was saying that point number one, let's recognize that BJP has won because it had more popular support. Number two, it's not only an election defeat, there is a much deeper cultural, ideological defeat. It's a deeper political defeat, which is what concerns me. Number three, there are no ready-made alternatives. So it all depends, and as Priyanka ji was saying, and I completely agree, unless the opposition gets its act together, we would continue to face this challenge. What is the challenge? I said yesterday, and I repeat verbatim, the challenge is, it did not begin with Uttar Pradesh election. It's been happening for quite some time. It began in many ways in a more serious way with 2019 election outcome. What we are witnessing is mobilization, successful mobilization of the public to dismantle the republic. What we are witnessing is a very serious assault on our constitutional values, a serious assault on the nature of our democracy. And before someone says, how can you question popular verdict? Allow me to say that if BJP were to say that you can never say that any popular verdict had any negative consequence, then BJP should say that for the first 50 years this country was ruled wonderfully because Congress was winning all the elections. Why is it that BJP used to say that Mrs. Gandhi is authoritarian?
Right.
She was after all winning elections. Why did they say Rajiv Gandhi was corrupt?
You're saying it's popular authoritarianism. That's what you're saying. That this is a sort of a.
This is something which you now see all over the world. You see that in Russia, you see that in Hungary, you see that in Turkey, and I'm afraid India is becoming one more country of that kind.
Let's get Mr.
And
Jain.
that is the real challenge.
Okay, Mr. Jain, who's smiling and
Jain sir, yes.
ready to intervene.
Yeah, I heard my old friend Yogeshwar Yadav yesterday also, and I will say only two things on that. If you see the electoral history of the India for the last 70 years, different states at the national level, people have been winning with very overwhelming majority, with the thin majority also, losing with thin majority, looting with thin margins also. 1991, the Congress did not get a mandate. Congress managed the majority support with the support of those MPs who were ultimately acquitted by the Supreme Court on the ground that though they accepted money, but they accepted on the floor of the House, and we can't question that. In 1977, it was after Mrs. Gandhi's emergency that the Janata Party won the election by a thumping majority. After 2.5 years, just a minute, after 2.5 years, same Mrs. Gandhi came back to power with the same number of seats.
Jain sir, I think I'm only interrupting because I don't think that's the point. The point is not about winning elections. Just a second. The point appears to be the fact that there is a threat to the constitution. There's an assault on constitutional institutions. Hold on whether it's the judiciary, whether it's investigating agencies, whether it's the manner in which political parties are targeted repeatedly, especially before elections. It's all of those things.
I'm replying
and simply
to that.
by winning elections doesn't necessarily make those things not true. I think that's the argument.
You have not even heard me and you are commenting on that. The point which I'm driving is this, that Indian polity has seen different phases, one party losing, winning, minority, majority. If at that time Indian Republic was not dismantled even during an emergency, even after the lifting of the emergency, even in 1991, how do you presume and apprehend, accept your own wishful thinking that Indian Republic is going to be dismantled? Number two. Number two. See, you have been just a minute. You have been talking whenever Mr. Modi wins. It was in 2014, again 17, again 19, again 22. Instead of finding the reasons for that, I'll request my colleagues, don't try to find out the excuses. You are not trying to find out the reason, and the basic reason is
let him respond.
Mr. Modi has won
Mr. Yadav.
confidence of the people.
Let Yogeshwar respond.
Mr. Yadav, I think Mr. Jain's point is, if the Republic wasn't
I heard
dismantled
it.
when the emergency was imposed, why is it being dismantled now? Although one does take your point about institutions, because it's very visible for all to see.
Mr. Jain would remember, and I
reply on
think he
that
must
also
have been a
after Mr.
political
Yadav.
activist during those
After him.
days.
Jain Sahab, एक second, one at a time.
All of us. I was very small, but Jain Sahab may have been a little elder to me. I do remember all of us, everyone who loved Indian democracy said democracy was being throttled by Mrs. Gandhi during the emergency. Why was it not dismantling? Why was it only dismantling of democracy and not a dismantling of the republic? Because at that time, Hindu-Muslim question, the foundational issue, people at the top were destroying democracy, but they were not questioning, at least this, people at the top were not inciting hatred against another part of India, which is what concerns me and which is what I, 80-20 was not being used at that time. And because that is being done right now, it's not only democracy that is being challenged today, it is the very foundation of Indian Republic which is being challenged today. And unfortunately, public is being mobilized. I do not blame the public. I blame people like us.
Okay. Let's get a quick
reply.
response from Jain Sahab before we move on. Jain Sahab, constant bigotry, communalism coming from the highest levels. Yes.
See, this is very unfortunate that you are presuming that it is coming from the top. May I tell you two things? Mr. Yadav, you might remember, you were also supporting JP movement. I was also supporting. Mrs. Gandhi had accused Jayaprakash Narayan of instigating military revolt. Was it not creating hatred against the leadership? Mrs. Gandhi had also said the institutions are being demolished. In spite of all that, Indian people came victorious in 1977 and defeated Mrs. Gandhi.
Jain Sahab.
Mrs. Gandhi, the example you want to follow.
Jain Sahab, one second.
I'm also confident that Indian people will come out victorious.
Don't apprehend
I completely
that
agree
simply
with
because
you.
something is there which you don't like.
No, Jain Sahab.
We shall come out victorious. Jain Sahab, I agree with
Let's
you.
get Priyanka Chaturvedi and Kakoli Ghosh into
Yes.
this.
Priyanka
Priyanka,
wants
yes,
to.
please go ahead and just, what you were saying about interest, I mean, this whole thing of facing the reality. I think you agree with Mr. Jain there that opposition parties now need to focus on why the BJP is winning and not find excuses for why they are not.
So, two things I'd just like to say here. Dismantling of republic happens when institutions are compromised, and we are seeing that happen. Dismantling of democracy, to make an argument against that, historical mistakes you can learn from. You're not supposed to repeat those historical mistakes and justify them in the years, in the times to come. That is all I'd like to tell Mr. Jain here. And yes, I'd be very honest, and an introspection is needed. Introspection by all political parties are needed. And I would think that the grand old party, which is the Congress party, would also need to seriously not just introspect, but also start working in terms of the changes that people expect from them. And I say this with total, I would say, responsibility, that when in Goa, whether it was the TMC, whether it was the Shiv Sena, whether it was the NCP, we spoke about showing a united front and fighting the Bharatiya Janata Party. They refused to cede that space. So today, the question would be asked of the opposition party, the Congress party, is it justifying its role and the opposition space it seeks with the kind of performance we are seeing after every state election? And that should be a cause of concern. And we come from a point of, I would say, responsibility with an alliance partner who will be alive within Maharashtra, that we owe a bigger responsibility to the nation. We need to fight this out together.
Okay. Kakoli Ghosh Dassidar, on one hand, the Trinamool says that the Congress is collapsing, the Congress is finished. In fact, today one of your leaders say the TMC should merge with the Congress.
The Congress should merge.
Or the Congress should merge with the TMC. On the other hand, like in Goa, when you find that the TMC's campaign is not working, then you say to the TMC, to the Congress, let us ally with you. How does that work? How does the opposition come? I mean, if you're always bickering with each other, how will you get your act together before 2024?
It is actually it is the responsibility of all opposition parties to sit together, sit up and think how to perform their individual role and a role together to take on the Bharatiya Janata Party. The anti-incumbency factor of the Bharatiya Janata Party is there, but it is the failure of mainly the most national party, that is the Congress.
Right.
If Indian Congress doesn't perform properly as they should, then the question comes whether they should join hands, and that is the call given by our party in Goa or other places, that you are most welcome to join hands. They have not performed, and their very attitude of depending on a particular age group of leadership and neglecting the other senior leaders is what is costing them this defeat.
But would you concede that the opposition space has just got a little more complicated and a little more crowded now with the Aam Aadmi Party's big victory in Punjab? Now, Arvind Kejriwal clearly sees himself as a national leader, Kakoli Ghosh Dastidar. Therefore, will it be Mamta? Will it be Kejriwal? Who is it going to be? Does it just become more complicated?
No, he is a very learned person. He's worked well. He's worked for a very long time in Punjab. Also in Goa, their entry was much ahead of ours. We were in Goa only for 2 to 3 months. So if somebody is a good student planning for a long time for the exam, then it is only acceptable that his results are going to be better than the other one. So Aam Aadmi Party has worked well and they've got their result.
Okay.
But we should not get together.
Right.
Draw a plan of action and then take on for 2024.
Right. Satyapal Jain Sahab, just towards the end, again it just got lost in too much noise, but just coming back to the point about the communalization that we are seeing under the BJP, the kind of comments and statements that were made in the campaign, the kind of laws that are being passed which are clearly aimed at discriminating towards certain sections. What is the, I'm not clear what the argument against that from you is. Do you not acknowledge the level and the intensity? I mean, we are in a hate pandemic. We are just recovering from the corona. We are in the middle of a hate pandemic, and the sort of hate speeches being made by our top leaders, isn't that something which, as Yogendra Yadav says, is threatening the very nature of our country, democracy, society?
See, so far as the BJP is concerned, right from day one, Mr. Modi has said two things. Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. Number two, my constitution is my Gita or my, whatever you may call that. BJP has never incited any communal violence, communal tension, no question of communal tension.
Sir, what your leaders, your leaders say,
you don't allow me to complete my sentence.
But sir, what is your leaders say? 80-20, Kabristan, Shamshan Ghat, Abba Jan,
and another term that Mr. Adityanath used in an interview, which I can't even repeat on air, about Muslims.
How can you say BJP is not inciting communal?
No, never. I am telling you, ultimately, the final verdict lies with the masses, with the people. It is in UP, there was practically 1-to-1 fight. In Punjab, there was 4-corner fight. In Goa and in Manipur, there were multi-corner contests. In spite of all that, the Indian masses of all religion, all regions, all parties, all ideologies have given clear mandate. This means the allegation is not correct.
No, come on. How can you say electoral victories? Sir, electoral victories don't erase. Electoral victories don't erase what is said and what is done. That's not, electoral victories is not a Ganga Jal you sprinkle over the kind of language and commentary that was used.
It is only an excuse. When you lose the election, if there is nothing else to say, you say you incited communal tension. If we had incited communal tension, why did we lose in Punjab? Why did we lose in West Bengal? All these are false allegations. I am again saying, ना खंजर उठेगा ना तलवार इनसे, ये बाजू मेरे आजमाए हुए हैं, ना ये कुछ स्लोगन रेस कर पाएंगे, ना इकट्ठे हो पाएंगे. मोदी ने लोगों का दिल जीत लिया है, वो राज करेंगे हिंदुस्तान पे.
All right, well, if you had incited communal tension successfully in Bengal, you might have won. I think that was maybe the takeaway from that.
Like
but thank
I said, you win an election, you rewrite history. So history is rewritten by the victor.
We forget what was said in the campaign, but actually you don't forget. We have to take a break. Thank you very much to all of you for joining us this evening. And when we come back, we're going to look at the different factors that actually propelled the BJP to this victory in Uttar Pradesh and elsewhere. That's after the break. Welcome back to our special coverage the day after the election results, and one of the things we're going to look at now in the next 30 minutes are the factors that led to the BJP's incredible victory in Uttar Pradesh. It's the first time in more than 3 decades that an incumbent government has come back, and it is various factors that were at play. Hindutva, yes. welfare schemes and women voters being the key among them. Let's go straight across first to Sanjay Kumar, a well-known psephologist with the CSDS, who has actually done a study on how women have voted. We'll just go across to Sanjay Kumar in a moment. Yamini Iyer, the head of a well-known think tank, CPR, Center for Policy Research, also joining us. Yamini Iyer, you wrote a terrific piece today actually talking about how women voters have played such a key role in propelling the BJP to power. Tell us more about that, and you got very specific in linking that to the welfare schemes that the BJP has rolled out.
Thanks, Nidhi. We spent some time traveling around eastern UP, and one of the things that emerged very clearly was the extent to which women that we were speaking to repeatedly expressed a affinity and emotive connection with the Prime Minister in particular. And as we probed that further, it was quite clear that the use of the instruments of welfare, this was visible in the 2017 election in the form of the Ujjwala scheme. In the 2022 election, it came in the form of the free ration as part of the COVID package that was extended in December and expanded in December, running through till the end of the elections into the end of March. That these repeatedly came up as aspects of what it was that forged the connection between the Prime Minister and the female voter. They spoke about the ration, they spoke about even the Ujjwala scheme, although today the cylinders are formidably expensive to pay for, but that affinity was strong. And what's important about it is the personal connection that was forged with the images of the Prime Minister. As one female voter we spoke to said, "Unka photo har jagah hai." So that direct attribution and that direct connection through welfare is what is building that, nurturing the female vote base.
Okay, let's also just get across to Sanjay Kumar of CSDS Lokniti, because, and of course Supriya Srinate is also with us. Sanjay Kumar, just wanted to ask you that, you know, because you've done a post poll now, which actually will tell you whether women were voting in larger numbers for A or B party. Now, Axis post poll, which was done by Headlines today, that actually found that the gap between men and women voting for the BJP was huge. It was only a 4% gap for men, but 16 percentage point more women voted for the BJP than the Samajwadi Party. Did your findings also see the skew of greater skew of women tilting towards the BJP?
No, Vasu, we did find some gap in the turnout of men and in the voting pattern of men and women for BJP, but it is not as large as being indicated by other polls. I'm not doubting other polls; they must have also adopted the methodology. But I must say, in our poll, the advantage BJP has among women voters is just 2%. Samajwadi Party is trailing among the women voters by 6%. And you may be thinking that then what happens to the 4%? BSP also has an edge, though BSP has a very small proportion of vote share, only 13% vote. But BSP also has an edge among women voters by 3%, 3.5%. So in our post poll, we saw only 2% lead for BJP among the women voters, not as big as 16%.
The Supriya Srinate, the Congress actually did try to focus a lot on women, and that was evident from Priyanka Gandhi's campaign and the whole, sort of focus on girls and women. At the end, though, where do you think the disconnect lay in the messaging in terms of how the BJP was able to successfully convey it and you all weren't?
So there are two things that I would want to say. Yes, we are talking about the women voters and we're going to talk about a number of factors. There are two things I want to put on record. I think what the BJP tried to do, and I agree with the speaker right before me, I think it was Mr. Sanjay Kumar. Yes. I don't agree there was a 15% difference between the women voters and the men voting pattern. I have my reservations about that because I was on the ground. I think issues that were of price rise or issues that were of joblessness pertain to women as much as they did to men. So I'm very surprised that a divergence like that is being reported. That's the first point I would want to report. I think other than just the women voters that we are focusing on, there are two things that this election has thrown up. And I think post-poll analysis needs to talk about that. There are 120 seats where the BSP completely helped the BJP. In the West, there were about 15 seats that the RLD lost with less than 1,000 or 500 margin. Why was that happening? Because the BSP was at rescue and was helping. Mr. Owaisi, his vote share has gone up from last time. He had 2 lakh votes in 2017. He had nearly 23 lakh votes this time, 100 constituencies. At an average, there were 23,000 votes that he was diverging from what? I am just saying, one second.
Hold on, when you say helping, hold on. Parties are contesting, it's a democracy. If you're, they're getting votes.
I am not saying they are doing
that's not really their fault.
No, Vasu, what I'm trying to say is when we do an analysis of the BJP's victory, you've got to realize how has voting been affected, who's taken away the votes, why has the BJP been able to get more number of seats than the other alliances. I'm just saying, I'm not saying whether they're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. Of course, it's a fundamental right to contest elections. I'm not disputing that. But all I'm saying is when we are doing a post-poll analysis, we've got to talk about why did the BJP end up winning and the alliance or other people lost. I also want to put on record here, when we are talking about women or the Ujjwala schemes that everybody keeps talking about ad nauseum, there are 5 crore cylinders in Ujjwala that have never been refilled because cylinders in India today have cost 1,000 rupees. Why is nobody talking about that? I mean, women that I went to visit, and perhaps they were more pro-Congress or anti-BJP, they all kept saying at length that aate ka daam बढ़ गया है, चाय पत्ती का दाम बढ़ गया है, पकौड़ा तलने वाले तेल का दाम 240 के आसपास है. So I'm not so sure that all of these women have voted like some of the polls are suggesting. Yes, the victor takes it all, but the post-poll analysis also needs to talk about why were the votes diverted.
Okay, well, I mean, in every election, yes, there is a division of votes. I mean, that can't be the sole factor. But we also have Nidhi with us. Vivek Kumar Srivastav, leader of the BJP, is here with us. Nilanjan Sarkar is also with us, who's senior visiting fellow at CPR. Now, Nilanjan, you've also been looking at this phenomenon of how basically government handouts or schemes are personalized, branded, and the role that that's now playing, because you're centrally reaching out to voters, you're cutting through intermediaries. That's become a big factor. So people are voting above identity lines for that. But is that a little simplistic? Because an election is a sum of many parts. And as I've got this line on it, that the BJP's campaign had sort of 5 H's. There's hate, Hindutva, highways, handouts, and hero worship. Right? So when you are giving handouts, you're building infrastructure, but there is also very strong identity politics. It can be in the form of overt communal messaging. It can be in the form of less direct, but it's all, it's all a package.
Yeah, I mean, let us not pretend that Hindu-Muslim polarization isn't core to what the BJP does, especially when Yogi Adityanath is the chief minister of the state, and we understand. I've been traveling since the Muzaffarnagar riots. I've been traveling through Western UP and the rest of UP, and the change between Hindu-Muslim relations is very, very noticeable over these last 8 years, right? And what has happened during Yogi Raj is also very, very noticeable. When people are saying that law and order is what we're attributing to Yogi Adityanath, it is coded language for keeping Muslims down. I am not the only person to have noticed that. That being said, if that is the basis upon which and the glue with which the BJP sort of builds its complicated caste coalitions, the other H that really matters a lot, in my view, is hero worship. So I want to make one thing very clear. The story with welfare benefits is not that people are being irrational. Women would say the benefits that I get certainly do not compensate for the price rise and the joblessness that we are seeing. Rather, what it is demonstrating that somebody like Modi can be a protector in times of difficulty, right? It's building into the image of what Modi means and what he means to the poor. If you heard his speech last night, that's exactly the tenor on which his speech was given. Right. It is about building the image of Modi, and only Modi can protect the poor. And so if you're voting against the BJP, you're voting against somebody you trust and somebody who protects you.
Okay.
Ration is only the reason today to vote for him.
Right. Vivek ji, क्या आप मानते हैं that when it comes to this victory in उत्तर प्रदेश, ये सब इन सब कारणों की वजह से है? ये मतलब चाहे महिला का वोट to some extent, but ये जो schemes की बात कर रहे हैं, मगर हिंदुत्व भी तो है इसमें सब मिला के.
निधि जी, हिंदुत्व हमारी विचारधारा का मूल है। राष्ट्रवाद की विचारधारा पे हम चलते हैं और हमारा पूरा प्रयास होता है कि बहुसंख्यक समाज के वोटों में बिखराव न पाए। महिलाओं ने हमको भारी संख्या में मतदान किया है। इसके पीछे भारतीय जनता पार्टी सरकार की ऐसी तमाम सी योजनाएं हैं जिससे महिलाएं सीधे प्रभावित होती हैं, चाहे वो विकास।
विवेक जी, इसका सबूत जैसा आप कहते हैं महिलाओं का ने आपको भारी संख्या में वोट दिया है, इसका सबूत क्या है?
आप लोग बता रहे हैं कि महिलाओं का एक परसेंटेज ज्यादा देखा गया वोट में।
सिर्फ संजय कुमार जी बता रहे हैं कि संजय कुमार जी के पोल से सिर्फ 2% का फर्क है आपके और सपा के बीच, जो ज्यादा नहीं है।
2% का भी जो फर्क है उसने अंतर तो डाल दिया।
नहीं, भारी नहीं, ज्यादा है, लेकिन आप ये नहीं कह सकते भारी संख्या में जब तक उसका कोई सबूत हो।
जिस तरह से महिलाओं की पंक्तियां देखी गई मतदान केंद्रों पे, जिस तरह से महिलाएं मतदान को लेकर उत्साहित थी, मेरा वो कहने का आधार है। अभी मेरे पास भी कोई ऐसे आंकड़े तो आए नहीं है, लेकिन फिलहाल महिलाओं ने बहुत ही उत्साहित होकर के मतदान किया है। उसके पीछे कुछ प्रमुख कारण हैं। एक तो उत्तर प्रदेश में आप कहीं राशन कार्ड बनवाने जाएंगे तो महिला की आईडी मांगी जाती है, परिवार महिला के नाम पे राशन कार्ड बनता है और राशन भी महिला के नाम पे दिया जाता है। तो एक तो राशन महिला को मिला, उज्ज्वला योजना मिली, जो घर दिया महिलाओं को दिया। ये सारी चीजें और सारी सबसे हट करके जो भी योजनाएं हैं भारत सरकार की, प्रदेश सरकार की, उनकी गुड डिलीवरी है जो उस जनमानस तक पहुंचाई गई शासन के तंत्र के द्वारा।
I just want to ask Yamini Iyer on this point that quite apart from the hair splitting right now that's happening over how how many women actually voted for the BJP in UP, because I think that will become clearer with time. But the fact is, Yamini Iyer, we are seeing the women vote playing a much more important role in different elections now for some years. So whether it's Bihar, and in Bengal, how is that changing the other dynamics that are normally at play in Indian politics, such as caste?
So I think one of the really interesting things that is emerging is that there is actually, at least in narratives, I don't know how this translates into voting, actual voting behavior, that there are distinctions that are being made between men and women within the same household. That itself is a very significant shift compared to at least our past understandings of how households voted, and particularly how women voted within those households. Women therefore are also emerging as a new cleavage within the dynamics of how voting patterns emerge, and I think that that's a very, very important and interesting phenomenon.
Right.
It's several state or regional parties across state governments have picked up on this. One last point I want to make is I do think, at least in my interactions, a lot of the expressed preference and narrative building around Modi, who kept everybody Surakshit, the protector, and that link and direct attribution with welfare benefits, was amongst Hindu women. Muslim women that we spoke with were a lot more circumspect, and I think this is something that we need to understand and explore further. The religious identity polarization is strong and it's visible, and I have a suspicion that it plays out also in how women are voting.
Okay. And also I have to say, in my own experience traveling in Uttar Pradesh, I didn't find such a huge gap in voting preferences between men and women for different parties. Most of the women we met seem to broadly go along with the voting preference in their specific caste or region or area. But on Supriya, I wanted to ask you that you experimented actually, because a lot of parties talk of women voters, but percentage of women candidates is abysmal. For BJP and SP, it was 10% or less. Congress actually gave, if I'm not mistaken, almost 40% of your 30 or 40% of your candidates were women, part of your ladki hu, lad sakti hu pitch. But the Congress did abysmally. Is that something now like a risk, a gamble you want to repeat?
So Vasu, I'm going to be very honest with you here. Even when we were talking about a 40% ticket for women, there were voices in that room that said this could either catapult us or it could completely boomerang, because 40% ticket means we are going to give tickets to people who've never contested elections in their life before. But I think this was a leap of faith that one had to take, and I'm saying this for my party. I don't think, at least as far as Priyanka Gandhi is concerned, we're going back on this. I personally feel that these women need to be groomed, because there are women leaders in the pipeline. Look at local body elections, 30 lakh elected representatives all across India because of affirmative action. 10 lakh of them are women, actually more in some states. Why can there be not more women in legislative bodies is a question that befails me. However, I do want to make one point, and I say this more as a voter, less as a politician. I am very baffled with a few things. You look at a Hathras, which really shook the collective consciousness of this country, or Lakhimpur, and the BJP goes on to win both those districts and almost all assembly seats there. It raises questions on, do voters not care about these gross violations of human rights? Do voters not care about politicians so drunk and intoxicated with power? I think voters need to put forward this question as well. Forget about welfareism for a minute, but here is a man who actually went ahead and massacred farmers.
That is an interesting question, even in the context of Lakhimpur Kheri.
Yeah, who raises that question? And who is going to put forward this question to voters? Because that's what we went with.
Is that down to, I mean, when it happens in a Hathras or a Lakhimpur Kheri, is that down to identity politics trumping everything else?
Of course, and religion, and it's communal.
No, I don't believe that.
You don't think it's that?
I'm sorry. I don't think it's that. I mean, look, obviously it is one part of the core appeal that the BJP has, but let us not underestimate. If voters tell us that ration is what matters to me, my connection to Modi is what matters to me, if they explicitly mention Hindu-Muslim polarization as one of the factors, then sure. But anybody who's been traveling to UP over the last decade will tell you it's not as if Hindu-Muslim polarization hasn't always been high. And that even in Western UP, where the BJP actually did worse this time compared to 5 years ago, Hindu-Muslim polarization, at least outwardly, was expressed less. It was visible because of what has happened during Yogi Raj, but as an affirmative reason to vote for the BJP, there were a number of reasons, not the least of which is caste consolidations, welfareism, perhaps not trusting the opposition parties. These are all other factors which matter for voters. To simplify voter preferences just to a Hindu-Muslim construct is to actually play into the game of Hindu-Muslim polarization.
Okay. Sanjay Kumar sir, just your thoughts on this, because you actually have exit poll numbers. How much of voting choices were made on the basis of, whether it's to do with welfare and so on, and how much of it was also a product of polarization or Hindu messaging?
Though we see a very direct correlation. All those people who benefited from the welfare scheme, among them a very large number of them voted for the BJP. So there are multiple factors. It's very difficult to say that this is the only factor or this is one factor on which BJP managed to mobilize the vote. There have been several factors. Yes, welfare is one factor. Also, if we say Hindu-Muslim polarization, but I have a slightly different opinion. It's not that kind of a polarization. It's not, like polarization on very sharply religiously divided line. I think BJP was very clever this time. They used law and order as a big narrative, and they tried to weave in this whole issue of, if there is a deteriorating law and order situation, who is responsible? And they kept taking names one by one, and most of these names would belong to one particular community. So they tried to relate deteriorating law and order situation with one particular religious community, and so there was a double-edged sword which they used. One is law and order, that if the law and order deteriorates, it affects your day-to-day life. And who are these people? The people who are responsible for deteriorating law and order situation are all of them belong to one particular religious community. So this narrative actually helped BJP mobilizing votes of the Hindus, consolidating votes of the Hindus, but not in a typical, euphoric manner, not in a typical euphoric manner.
Right.
Interesting that take on this. Well, we have to leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much to all of you for joining us for some perspective on what led to the BJP's victory in UP. And again, I'm quite surprised, Vasu. The data is again so 2%.
16%
and 16% says another poll when it comes
clarity.
to just how many more women voted for the BJP. We'll see you at the top of the hour. Do join us then. Good evening and welcome to our special coverage the day after the election results. Is 2024 a done deal, as the Prime Minister says? Well, that's what we've been focusing on for the last hour, and in this hour we'll be looking at the state of the opposition, particularly the Congress party. Is the Congress party in a state of terminal decline, and will it be in a position to be called the principal opposition party anymore?
To really get into what is going on with the Congress and what lies in the future, we have two senior leaders with us, Salman Khurshid, of course, with the Congress, and Rita Bahuguna Joshi, senior leader of the BJP.
We also have Jasmine Shah from the Aam Aadmi party
And
joining
Jasmine
us,
Shah.
Vasu. The AAP now emerging as a sort of
Yes.
principal contender in those areas where the Congress is weak.
That's right. And so Rita Bahuguna Joshi is with us, and we've got a great panel. Salman Khurshid, thanks very much indeed for joining us. It's a difficult time for the Congress, so thank you for coming on. A lot of your leaders don't want to come on, but you've come on. Let's just cut to the chase, Salman Khurshid, because to go back into existential questions, should you introspect, hold meetings, I think we're sort of past that. I think it's time, Salman Khurshid, to ask the direct question that is it time now to just have a new change of guard at the very top, because ultimately all accountability, there have been so many electoral failures. Is it the Gandhis have had a long run? Is it time to now have a non-Gandhi, give them a chance?
Well, I mean, I should have been at the G23 meeting if I was of that view. I'm not, and that's why I am with you. I will not underestimate the challenge that we face now, and I think that underscoring whatever has happened in the last couple of years is not going to serve any purpose. There will be, inevitably, a serious think within the party. We'll go back to the drawing board, I'm sure, but for this purpose, the working committee has been summoned, and the working committee will begin this matter.
But,
and I think for me to jump to conclusions, what may happen.
Mr. Khurshid, that's what's been happening. It's like we're in this auto replay mode, because since 2014 you've had countless CWCs. You've talked about introspection. Are we still at that stage where the Congress will inevitably, as you said, look at these issues? Isn't it becoming a bit too late?
All I am saying is, please wait till the working committee takes place. I mean, if there is a collective meeting of the party leadership, it would be extremely unfair for me to jump the gun and say, well, this is what the party is doing or will do. Or
no, Salman Khurshid, you're too senior and well regarded for you not to have your own view, right? You're entitled to that. Now, to just go through the usual playbook, have a CWC, have a resolution, pass that resolution, the waters have risen too high. Don't you feel personally that when you have a crisis this acute, it's time to give somebody else a shot? What's the argument against that? If a group of people are not able to run a company or a political party or any entity successfully for years, then someone else gets a shot, right?
There is much. Sure. There is much that can be said, and I'm sure will be said in due course. I'm just not prepared to to bring everything out in the open here before the working committee meets. I'm not saying that, look, we should just turn a blind eye to what has happened. No, nobody is going to turn a blind eye. Okay. We must, and we will in due course come up with certain responses. If you think that we've taken too long, well, perhaps we have, but we will come back with responses to hold out something here that may not necessarily be help in what we want to do. Is something I'm trying to avoid.
Okay, well, maybe we can have a discussion on the weather since you are here. But anyway, before we come to Rita Bahuguna Joshi, Jasmine Shah from the AAP is with us just for 5 minutes, Vasu, because he has to go on to another channel, which I don't envy the task of, spokespersons who have to go from channel to channel. But Jasmine Shah, you guys have had this big win in Punjab, and you've had it at the cost of the Congress, the Akalis, and you're now eyeing Gujarat, Himachal, even Karnataka you're looking at. Now, is it going to be a challenge though? Even though the Congress may be weak structurally in Gujarat today or even in Himachal, it's not always going to be easy to replicate what you did in Punjab in these states. You're still finding your feet outside of Delhi.
Nidhi, it is absolutely not easy, let me admit that. India is large, and a party like ours, which runs with honest money and has very meager resources, it takes a lot of effort to build our presence on the ground. But our biggest asset is that today we have made a place in the heart of the people across India, not just where we are winning electorally. Today we have won with this kind of a mandate in Punjab only because people of Punjab have been tracking and following what the Kejriwal model of governance has delivered in Delhi. Today people expect that if AAP is elected, if AAP is an option, if we are strong in any state, then we will build them good schools. We will build them good mohalla clinics, hospitals. So it is this model of governance that has endeared up to the people across India. Right. And it will be a matter of time. We are fully committed to going. It will happen slowly.
It will happen in a matter of time. All at once. Okay. Let's just get Rita Bahuguna Joshi in. Rita Bahuguna Joshi, you listened to Salman Khurshid. He's your former colleague. I'm sure you both have a lot of regard for each other. But you were in the Congress. You had reasons. You were telling us yesterday, why you left. What would you say to somebody like Salman Khurshid at this time, who still seems to think that you have a CWC meet? Is it too late for that, all that now?
Well, I think I'm in different party for the past 7 years, and I'm nobody to advise them in their internal affairs. And I have extreme regard for Salman Bhai, and what I feel is that the party has lost its focus. They have lost the strength to speak inside. In a democracy is not there at all. And one who speaks, they're known as G23, G22, whatever it is. So I think it's time senior leaders should stand up and talk. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to advise them on anything. I only feel that it was in 2012 or 14 when this strong voice should have emerged. It is but too late. They are lost in the road, and I think lack leadership and against
you don't have to. It's not about advice though. But you feel that the Gandhis
3 months before.
No, but do you think that Rita ji? But do you think it's time that the Gandhis now step aside and somebody else gets a shot? Do you think that leadership is not worth?
Well, it's for them. That it's for them to decide.
But what's your view?
One thing is very clear. One thing is very clear, that the people have rejected the leadership of Rahul Gandhi ji. One should be. There is no doubt about that. And they have immense faith in the leadership of Narendra Modi ji. So it's for the Congress to decide what they want to do with themselves. They want to go it alone everywhere. Look how they messed themselves up in Punjab. Now our party, spokesperson is saying people are influenced by our model of development. No, it was not a positive vote. It was a negative vote. People were annoyed with it.
So Salman,
Salman Khurshid, I know you don't want to get into specifics. You're saying you don't want to lay out your cards on the table before a CWC happens. But do you believe, can I just ask you that, do you believe there is space for a non-Gandhi to lead the Congress, and that is an option that could be on the table?
Well, listen, I personally think that you're narrowing things down too much. I heard what Rita ji said, and let me reciprocate that I hold her in just as high an esteem as she said she holds me. We have been very, very good friends and colleagues. But having said that, let me just say that there are basic issues. BJP has raised this as well. There are basic issues about the way this country wants to move forward. Right now, we may disagree with that, but they have a mandate. They've been getting support repeatedly. They have a mandate. We disagree with that. For me personally, if you disagree with the BJP mandate or the BJP point of view, you have to articulate your point of view with a sufficiently compelling argument. Yeah.
This is not is not right now about wider philosophical questions of mandates. This is about a crisis within the Congress party and how it can be fixed. And it's not about narrowing the focus. It's really, as I said, every institution, if it goes through this crisis under the leadership of X or Y, there is inevitable change. Why is it so difficult for the Congress party, for leaders like yourself, to come out and say, listen, maybe we need change at the top, or to explain to us why you think it's so important that the Gandhis continue on?
Listen,
what are they bringing to the table that we're all missing?
I understand. I wish I didn't have to get into this, because there are people with different views on this. There are people, as you just said, who are meeting separately at Mr. Azad's house.
No, we're asking your view.
No, my view would unravel things that I don't want to unravel now. I mean, a lot of things that Mr. Azad's group there is wanting to change, I would say those things happened because of them. They didn't happen on their own. So I don't want to get into you said this and I said this.
Intriguing.
I want to wait till my party collectively
so
my party.
Can we put it this way, from what you just said, that you're saying that it's not fair to blame the leadership of the Congress alone?
I just didn't use the word blame at all. I was talking about decisions and choices. I didn't even use the word blame.
Okay, let's try another attack.
Sorry?
And let me try something. Let's try another. Rita ji said that it's clear that the people of this country have lost faith in Rahul Gandhi. Would you agree with that or disagree?
No, but is Rita ji saying that the people of this country have faith in the Congress party and in Salman Khurshid? She's not saying that. She's saying the people of the country have lost faith in Rahul Gandhi. Is that would you agree or disagree?
She's chosen a specific point of view, and that's not a point of view that I share, and I said to you right in the beginning. But having said that, I still need to do something about the state of affairs we are in, and I told you, collectively we will reflect upon it, and we will come back. The first thing we'll have to do is...
Okay, Rita ji, I just want to ask you, I mean, I know that, you're in a different political camp today, but would you say that having a strong opposition is important in a democracy at the end of the day? Or not just in terms of words, but having been on the other side, that actually this isn't good for India to see the principal opposition party decline? Or do you think it's good that other forces like the AAP are coming up as possible alternatives?
No, I've always...
if there are alternatives emerging...
That's for Rita
Joshi. A strong
Joshi.
opposition is absolutely necessary. A strong opposition is absolutely necessary. Good leaders should never lose. This stand has been taken for the past 20 years. Whether it's in the opposition or the ruling, good leaders, people who can speak well in the parliament should not be defeated by the electorate, one thing. But the second point is, you see, the leadership in the Congress has lost connect with the people. Now when they say, ladki hu lad sakti hu, it has not gelled with the women. They must have been excited, but it did not connect them as the slogan should have connected with them. However, Modi ji has an excellent connect with the people. Now how he connects through various means, through the programs that he releases, or for that matter when he has his Aap Man Ki Baat, or when he talks to the people over the phone, over the radio. See, all the time he connects with the people so beautifully. When he goes to programs. So the question here is, see, this man...
No, but Rita ji, just one thing. You're saying that the BJP is really...
I'm not saying BJP.
You're saying that the BJP is a much better performing party. Its leadership is connected, but some would question also, if you just saw what happened in this election, your own son joined the Samajwadi Party, which then raises that question, that what is the issue there? If the BJP is so amazing, then why did that happen?
He was never an active member of the BJP. Please let you understand. And if he has left, it's his own choice. In a democracy, every member of a family has a choice. Every individual has a choice. So I'm not going to discuss his choices. What I am saying is pragmatic analysis of the situation. My analysis is that the leadership in the party, see, Jawaharlal Nehru had a direct connect with the people. Mrs. Gandhi connected so well with the people for decades after her. People in South would say Amma. They connected with them. Now this leadership at the present for the past 1 decade is unable to connect. When they say something, people don't believe them. They don't trust them. So the question here is, the Congress, I'm not challenging Congress's ideology. I am saying they are not, if they have to emerge as an opposition, or as a strong political party, they have to connect.
Well, Reena Gupta of the Aam Aadmi Party joining us as well. Reena Gupta of the Aam Aadmi Party joining us as well. Reena Gupta, how do you think that the opposition space will play out now? Because clearly the Congress is in this sort of state of decline, but there is also now more jostling within the opposition for who the natural leader of this alliance could be and should be. So there's Mamata Banerjee, there's Arvind Kejriwal, there's the Telangana Chief Minister, there's Sharad Pawar. Does that actually complicate the opposition's efforts?
So Nidhi, India is a big country, and of course, there are several regional parties. But as far as Aam Aadmi Party is concerned, I think Mr. Arvind Kejriwal is the most well recognized face across the country. We hear of people winning on AAP tickets, even from places like Assam and Kerala, where we don't even have a party sangathan. So it's very clear that Mr. Kejriwal has emerged as the strongest face of the opposition, especially after the victory in Punjab. But having said that,
Reena, once again, when you say most well recognized, are you saying he's better recognized as an opposition face than Rahul Gandhi?
I don't think, the recent results, Vasu, from the 5 states, it's very clear that Congress and Rahul Gandhi are not being given a chance by the people of the country. Everybody has lost hope in Congress, and Congress has no other to blame but themselves. Be it Goa, be it Madhya Pradesh, it's their own MLAs that sell off and go and join BJP. So why should I vote for a party where I'm not even sure that their MLAs will stick with the party and not sell out?
But what makes Arvind Kejriwal, say, a more recognized leader than a Mamata Banerjee? They both had amazing success in their sort of respective regions, as it were. So why should it be Arvind Kejriwal, say, over her?
See, if you look at especially the northern part of the country, you look at Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Bihar, UP. I don't think Mamata ji is really recognized in all of these states.
Oops.
And this is a huge part of the country.
Mamata ji may not take that very kindly to that. She was just in Banaras, in fact, recently campaigning for Akhilesh.
I love the picture that we have of Mamata ji right now. It just fits in with what could have been her reaction.
Looking upset. But Nilanjan,
but just one last point, Vasu, that I want to make.
Just
one last point. Yeah. One of the important things, I think, which the CM of Delhi yesterday made, he said, we all always say that there is no alternative to Modi ji, there is no alternative to Bharatiya Janata Party. So his message and our message to all of those people who keep saying there is no alternative, please come and join Aam Aadmi Party. Let us all join hands and let us not lose hope. We keep thinking कि कुछ हो ही नहीं सकता. कुछ हो सकता है. पंजाब के लोगों ने ये करके दिखाया है और पूरे देश के अगर voices मिल जाएं तो we can.
All right. So AAP, Trinamool, both doors are open. But Nilanjan, this whole idea, we keep going back to this again and again, Congress collapsing. Realistically though, for a pan-India opposition party to come up is going to take years, right? I mean, it's not an easy thing.
That's right. I think if we're looking at 2024, it's still a large number of BJP versus Congress contests. And if that's the case, then what we know for 2014-2019 is the BJP head-to-head against the Congress has more than 90% strike rate. So, opposition unity or not, opposition doesn't have much of a chance. So the only question then is, how does the opposition expand if it's not just about the Congress, right? I think in numerical terms, we have to be honest about what the state of play is. In narrative terms, both Mamta and Kejriwal have shown that they can be a strong opposition leader, even if the numbers are not there yet. And I think what these state elections show is that some of the rot at the national level of BJP versus Congress is creeping into the state, into state elections. The big challenge will be that if the Congress crumbles in one of these big Hindi heartland states, a Rajasthan, a Madhya Pradesh, a Chhattisgarh, is it an Aam Aadmi party or a TMC that can come and fill that void? They each have strengths. Aam Aadmi party has a very popular leader, very modern campaign techniques. TMC has a popular leader, particularly seen as pro-poor on welfare delivery, has the ability to build party networks very quickly, which the Aam Aadmi party hasn't done in Punjab even, right? So that becomes the open question, and that's not something we know yet, but that's really when an opposition other than the Congress will emerge. When in the Hindi heartland, one of the Congress parties implodes.
Okay.
All right. Well, interesting times ahead. Never a dull moment in Indian politics, is it?
Absolutely. And let's really see how this entire Congress story plays itself out. Will there be any big disruption or change, or will it be business as usual? Thank you all so much for joining us on the show. Thank you so much for watching. But stay on, as we'll bring you more on the political twists and turns after the break. Okay, time now for an NDTV exclusive. The big Congress debacle in yesterday's elections has raised questions over the party and where it goes from here. Joining us, my colleague Nidhi and I, is DK Shivkumar. He's of course a senior Congress leader. He's the state president in Karnataka, but he's also the party's firefighter. He was sent to Goa in case the Congress needed his services, but of course the BJP stole the upper hand. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Shivkumar, for joining us. Now, Mr. Shivkumar, how would you explain this crisis of the Congress? You lost this recent set of elections, is not for the first time. What is the main reason for the crisis? Is it the leadership which is the main problem?
No, it is not the leadership. The leadership has always stood by all the cadres, and they have worked hard in the entire country. The entire leadership has given a lot of confidence with all the cadres and given us a responsibility that one thing we are not able to convince the voter that what has gone into them about the unemployment problem or whatever the issues in COVID issues, whatever the crisis people faced, that I think we are not able to convince them, and they were also not.
No, why are you not able to convince?
Why
are you failing to convince?
Are you saying it's just a communication problem?
No, see, the people of this country are not able to understand. See, in suppose there was a TMC, the West Bengal elections were there. There were a lot of political angle, the entire government machinery was used. Still the people of West Bengal resisted on that issue, and in other parts of the states also.
But Mr. Shivkumar,
we had an opportunity to convince them, but I think we have failed in it, and we are looking at it.
But Mr. Shivkumar, let's be honest here. Since 2014, the Congress has been talking about introspection, about learning from mistakes. Doesn't the buck actually stop with the leadership? Are Congress leaders who are still loyal to the Gandhis making excuses for them? To be honest, under Priyanka Gandhi's leadership, you all have had the worst performance in UP, one seat and a terrible vote share as well. So is it trying to take that issue head on?
No, see, Priyanka Gandhi, we knew that she is taking a very tough ride. She has attended more than 200 odd rallies. She was capable of handling the UP, and she has somehow put all the 400 odd candidates in the state. Whether what numbers we have got is a different issue. Even the BJP have experienced the same. Earlier in the parliament also, only Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Advani ji was there, and they have picked up, and still it is it was a Congress state long back, 30-40 years back.
Shivkumar,
we have confidence. We knew
but Mr.
what will happen, but still we have tried our best and started a good footing.
But Mr. Shivkumar, the thing is, you're right. All parties go through ups and downs, but the Congress has been on a steady decline. If you compare how many states you are in power in, 10 years ago, you look at today, you're just barely hanging on to two states. You are barely a presence in parliament. In any other company organization, if you have continuous decline, the leadership will be sacked, removed. New people will be brought. Why is it here that despite failure after failure, Gandhis are it's almost like a divine right?
See, as far as the Congress party is concerned, I am telling you, very fair and very free. Without Gandhi family, Congress party cannot be united. Without Congress party being united in this country, the Congress party has been united, the country also can't be united in the future. Forget we might have lost and we might have only have two states. Time will come, up and rises will come, we may have defeats, we accept the defeat. The people at a point of time definitely they will have a change.
United.
No one is permanent in politics.
You've had one exit after another. Very senior Congress leaders, Ashwini Kumar, who was in the Union Cabinet, who was Law Minister, was the latest to leave. You've had a string of younger leaders who have left the party, from Scindia to Jitin Prasad to RPN Singh. I mean, the point
how are the Gandhis uniting the Congress?
You're actually disintegrating.
So many people are, yes.
See, they are not able to sustain their power hungers. They doesn't want to waste their time. They doesn't want any ideology. They are leaving the party. We believe in the Congress party ideology. We believe in the Gandhi family. We will stay with them. We will stand with them. We will fight out what may come. We will stand with them, and I am sure that the entire country will look back at them.
Do you accept, Mr. Shivkumar, that the Congress is now at the risk of losing its status as the prime opposition to the BJP? Now other people are coming, TMC is coming, Aam Aadmi is coming. TMC is actually saying time to merge with the Congress, should merge with us. Congress cannot fight the BJP, merge with TMC.
It's an interesting idea.
So, no, it is their liking and disliking. We have our own history. And ultimately, one should not forget that the Congress party grew all of them, made them strong. If at all, if Mamta ji, we have full respect for her leadership and everything, it is ultimately the base was being given by the Congress party and the Gandhis at her younger days.
That was history,
it is
Mr.
the Gandhi
Shivkumar.
family which protected her and gave all strength to her.
Sure, but that was history, Mr. Shivkumar. How is the Congress looking at the future? You're not even able to... I mean, Sonia Gandhi is still interim president of the Congress party. Rahul Gandhi takes decisions for the party without a proper organizational designation. So, who is actually in charge? Do you not think that you've come to a crisis point where you have to do something drastic?
No. I think we might have lost the election, but it was very systematically, with a democratic way. We have our general secretary, we have general secretary in charge, we have the president. Every seat was being discussed by the Congress president. Every seat was being. We might have got not the numbers, but the organization setup was well.
Okay, so
well established. Even today in my state, whatever may be, I may be a president. Again, we have a national secretary. We have the other office bearers. They look at all the affairs.
Okay, fair. Now, let us ask you in conclusion: is it time for a non-Gandhi, somebody else, to now lead the party?
No, it is impossible. Congress party can be only united with the Gandhi family. I am with a firm view. We have just discussed across the country with various leaders. No one can put a point. No one can have that seat. It is only the Gandhi family can keep this party and the country united. I am firm in it.
All right.
And
Well,
Mr.
bodes well.
Shivkumar,
Bodes really well.
They're all
for your
leaving.
introspection.
All the leaders are, sir, united how? They're all leaving one after
They're
another.
united in leaving at the moment, but well, good luck to your introspection. Thank you, Mr. Shivakumar. Thank you.
Who are hungry for power, let them leave.
Okay.
We are not hungry for power. We want our basic structure to be united.
All the best.
Okay,
All
Mr.
the best.
Shivkumar. Sir, thank you very much indeed. Actually, really appreciate your coming because it's a difficult time for the Congress. So, in this time, at least you came and took the questions. That is, a lot of leaders are not taking, but very nice of you to come, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Srinivas. Thank you.
Well, Bhagwant Mann will be taking oath as the Chief Minister of Punjab on the 16th of March. The Chief Minister designate of the Aam Aadmi Party was in Delhi today to meet Party Chief Arvind Kejriwal.
Bhagwant Mann meeting his party boss after a historic win in Punjab. Now he'll be Chief Minister of a state which has 2/3 more MLAs than Delhi. Mann will be sworn in on the 16th of March. He drove almost 5 hours to meet Arvind Kejriwal on government formation. AAP is now the only party apart from the Congress and the BJP to now have 2 chief ministers, propelling the startup party's stature. After the 2-hour-long meeting here at the party supremo's home in New Delhi, the Aam Aadmi Party announced that Mr. Arvind Kejriwal and Mr. Bhagwant Mann will hold a road show in Amritsar to celebrate on Sunday, and on Wednesday, Mann will take oath as the new Chief Minister of Punjab. Mann's visit to Delhi is already being seen as an early indication that the centre of power will remain here. At his meeting with newly elected MLAs in Mohali, Mann said his cabinet will have 17 ministers in addition to himself.
17 plus CM ਆਪਾਂ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਬਣਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਦੇ 75 ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦਾ ਗੁੱਸਾ ਨਾ ਕਰਨ ਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਆਏ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਹੋ ਮੇਰੇ ਲਈ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਕੋਲੇ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਚਾਹੋ ਘੱਟ ਤੋਂ ਘੱਟ ਚੰਡੀਗੜ੍ਹ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਪਿੰਡਾਂ ਚੋਂ ਚੱਲੂਗੀ ਵਾਰਡਾਂ ਚੋਂ ਚੱਲੂਗੀ ਮੁਹੱਲਿਆਂ ਚੋਂ ਚੱਲੂਗੀ
Giant leaders like Prakash Singh Badal, even the sitting Chief Minister Charanjit Singh Channi, lost to Aam Aadmi candidates like 35-year-old Labh Singh Ugoke, who works at a mobile repair shop. Whether MLAs like him will find space on the cabinet remains to be seen.
देखिए, अगर मुझे जिम्मेवारी मिली है, जब उनको मिली थी तो उन्होंने काम नहीं किया, इसीलिए पूरे पंजाब के लोगों ने उन्हें झाड़ू से साफ कर दिया.
The Aam Aadmi Party, now projecting itself as a national level opposition party, today opened another front against the union government on the delay to municipal elections in Delhi.
शाम को 5 बजे चुनावों का ऐलान होना था, तारीखों का ऐलान होना था. 4 बजे, उसके 1 घंटा पहले केंद्र सरकार ने चुनाव आयोग को चिट्ठी लिखी कि हम दिल्ली के तीनों नगर निगमों को एक साथ एक नगर निगम बनाने जा रहे हैं, इसलिए आप ये चुनाव टाल दीजिए. 5 बजे चुनाव आयोग ने चुनावों केंद्र सरकार के कहे के मुताबिक चुनाव टालने का ऐलान कर दिया. प्रधानमंत्री जी, अगर हम चुनाव आयोग को दबाव डाल के चुनाव कैंसिल कराते हैं, इससे चुनाव आयोग कमज़ोर होता है, और चुनाव आयोग कमज़ोर होता है, चुनाव कैंसिल होते हैं तो देश कमजोर होता है.
Union Minister Smriti Irani hit back, sidestepping claims of deliberate delay, but said the Kejriwal government had cut funding for municipal bodies.
जब अरविंद केजरीवाल जी ने स्वतः नगर निगम का गत 7 वर्षों में 13,000 करोड़ रुपया रोक के रखा ताकि निगम अपने कार्यों में विफल हो.
Whether or not there is an upwave, the party has begun the work of building its majority government in the key state of Punjab. With Sonakshi Chakravarti, Meher Pandey for NDTV.
And there have been incredible stories of giant killers in this election campaign, certainly from Punjab, with all those stalwarts being defeated, including the man who defeated the sitting chief minister. Also in Goa, the incredible story of the mechanic who also took down a big gun.
If there was ever a high-profile contest that took place in this very exciting Punjab elections, it has to be the one that was fought at the Bhador Assembly constituency, which is basically a 35-year-old man from this area, from this constituency, Mr. Labh Singh Ugoke, who belongs to the Ugoke village, who defeated the Chief Minister, the former short-term Chief Minister, Mr. Charanjit Singh Channi. Sat Shri Akal, and बहुत बहुत मुबारक आपको. Obviously सबने आपसे ये पूछा है, मैं भी आपसे पूछूंगी कि आपने कभी भी सोचा था कि आप मिस्टर चरणजीत सिंह चन्नी को आप हरा दोगे इस बार?
जी बिल्कुल जी.
आपने सोचा था हरा दोगे?
मेरे लोगों ने सोचा था कि हरा देंगे.
आप कॉन्फिडेंट थे कि नहीं?
बिल्कुल जी.
कैसे इतना कॉन्फिडेंस?
ये कॉन्फिडेंस मेरे हल्का भदौड़ के लोगों की वजह से.
हाँ.
जिस दिन चरणजीत सिंह चन्नी को यहाँ अनाउंस हुआ जी, तो उस दिन से लोगों की वर्डिंग ये थी कि आप हमारा गांव छोड़ दो, कोई और देखो, इसको हम संभाल लेंगे.
अच्छा.
इतने कॉन्फिडेंट थे हमारे लोग, क्योंकि यहाँ हमारे लोगों की सोच है, जो उन्हें लग गया कि भाई ये करना है तो वो कर देंगे. जैसे वो 2012 में पंजाब के प्रिंसिपल सेक्रेटरी थे जो दरबारा सिंह गुरु, उनको हरा दिया था. एक उस बंदे को जिता दिया था जो बिल्कुल अनपढ़ है.
जरा अपने परिवार, अपने जर्नी के बारे में बताइए छोटा.
जी. मैं देखिए बहुत ही आम घर से आया हूँ. मेरे फादर साहब वो एक ट्रैक्टर ड्राइवर है. मेरी मदर वो गवर्नमेंट हाई स्कूल में वो स्वीपर का काम करती हैं. और मेरे ब्रदर इंडियन आर्मी में जॉब करते थे. तो मैं भी सोचता था कि मैं भी भारतीय फौज में जाऊं, लेकिन नहीं जा पाए. उसके बाद मैंने हार्डवेयर का डिप्लोमा करके कंप्यूटर जो मोबाइल रिपेयर शॉप है वो अपने गांव में रन की थी. तो उसी के दौरान मुझे आम आदमी पार्टी से जुड़ने का मौका मिला, क्योंकि मैं सोचता था कि यहाँ मेरा परिवार हो, वो स्टेट रहने लायक हो. तो उसी चीज़ के लिए हमने आम आदमी पार्टी ज्वाइन का मैसेज देना चाहूँगा कि जो एक्चुअल में आम आदमी है ना, वो उसे आम आदमी ही रहना चाहिए.
तो वो आम आदमी नहीं थे? नहीं
है. 2 लाख का टाइम पीस लगाया, किसी मीडिया कर्मी ने बताया था कि उनके घर पे.
अच्छा.
तो मैं देखिए, अगर मुझे जिम्मेवारी मिली है, जब उनको मिली थी तो उन्होंने काम नहीं किया, इसीलिए पूरे पंजाब के लोगों ने उन्हें झाड़ू से साफ कर दिया.
Well, in the small state of Goa, it's been a resounding victory for the BJP, winning 20 of the 40 seats. While they're comfortably going to form the government, the other big story emerging from this election is of the Aam Aadmi Party, registering even 2 seats that the AAP has in a small state like Goa is a big deal. Joining us on NDTV is a very special guest. He's a first-time MLA now, Venzi. He contested, he's one of the MLAs who's won from the Aam Aadmi Party. Congratulations, how are you feeling?
Thank you, Rishika. The feeling is really great. I mean, the trust that the party and all the constituents have put up upon me, I think I'm really thrilled and I'm really excited.
Venzi, you've made headlines because you've defeated Churchill Alamo. He's a 5-time MLA. He's been a minister. This is his family fiefdom. He spoke to NDTV before the election, and you know he refused to even take your name as a serious contender, and you've beat him by 1,200 votes.
Yes, you see, me coming from a local background, no political backing, no political support, seafarer background. My father used to be a motor mechanic, and we grew up in such a humble, God-fearing manner. And today, I am here to serve the people, and the people have seen and kept their hope and faith on me. And I think that is the only hope and the faith what the people have on me. I am here today. It is not about what we want. It is about what the people want and what the people have seen that has not been done in this constituency. And I'm sure that God willingly, we all are going to change the dynamics of politics, which actually is what the Aam Aadmi here for. And actually, we believe that Aam Aadmi Party is the only hope for this nation. India being a huge nation needs political parties like the Aam Aadmi Party who have changed dynamics in Delhi, and now it's going to happen in Punjab.
Venzi, I'll ask you this. It's a big deal for the Aam Aadmi Party to have won these 2 seats. It's a small state. Every seat is extremely important. Before the election results were made clear, it was, widely spoken of that AAP and Congress are in touch, and if there's going to be, if the Congress emerges as the single largest party, you'd go ahead and support the Congress. That in a lot of ways is the politics that you're fighting. You fought tooth and nail against the Congress in Punjab, for instance. Was that, how did that agree with you? Would you have been happy to support a Congress government?
It's not about agreeing with me, it's about agreeing with the whole of Goa and Goans. That is what actually Goans wanted, that let's fight elections, but when it is coming to formation of the government, it has to be all together against the BJP, and that was the Goan voice what was given to us during the campaigning, and we had to agree to that because that was the need of the hour from the people. People said we will vote for you, but in case you don't come into majority, you all whoever are there should come together and fight the BJP.
What's going to be your politics? What are you going to do now that you have the power to actually change things?
First thing is Venzi is going to be the voice of Goa. Venzi is going to be the voice of the people of the Benaulim constituency. And with these two taglines, I think the entire equation in the assembly has to change this time. Venzi is going to be instrumental in ensuring and to convince everyone to be for Goa and to be for Goans. And that instrumentation I'm going to start from day one.
There were a couple of key points that you talked about earlier, including, making ambulances available. These were things in your manifesto as well. What are some of the immediate things you want to change?
There are a few private member bills that are planned in my manifesto to be introduced in the first assembly session. One of them is a mandatory ambulance access to all Goan houses. So that's not only for my constituency. A mandatory 3 meters access for an ambulance. No license is required. It's like a blanket approval. You don't have a road for an ambulance. You use this formula and you get this paperwork done and that road is done. Then second thing is Goa is a beautiful state with coastal belt, and the need of the hour is to hold on to businesses, to avoid corruption while doing businesses. And today we see that our Sound Act needs to be retuned. We need to make sure that the old Sound Act, the MP Sound Act, which we are presently using in Goa and which says that music has to be stopped at 10 o'clock, we need to revise that because business starts at 10 o'clock at night and business continues late night. So we need to put in sufficient measures that the decibels are in place, people don't get disturbed in the surroundings, and the music lasts and businesses continue and more tourism.
Well, you have your work cut out for you. Congratulations once again and all the very best.
Thank you, Rishika.